So I'm going to start the recording. Try that share again. So if you're here for this workshop, you're in the right place. So I want to acknowledge again that we're recording, and we do plan to post the recording on the website for folks who want to take another look at what they came to, and also if somebody missed it. I'd also love to keep in touch with you about what we're doing. So if you'd rather not be on the mailing list, it's about 1 to 3 emails per month. Please direct message me right here in the chat and say, don't do that or stop or whatever. Let me know not to do that, and I won't. We will officially end at the top of the hour, but I'll save Q&A and such for after that in case anybody wants to stay longer, but we'll make sure that we get everything in by the top of the hour. And so we're going to do an overview of the Mendful app and the training, and also talk about briefly how today's workshop fits in with the 1-hour series and the full training. We'll do an evaluation, and then we'll end. So before we start, I wanted to suggest getting a pen and paper or some other screen to write on, because I'm going to ask you to think of a conflict in your life in a little bit, a minor one, and write it down that you can use. Or if you prefer not to do that, we will provide you with a conflict that you can use. So I already talked about this. Let's go on. So here's the invitation for the exercise that we'll do later. And that's to think of a minor, meaning like mild to medium mild level, unresolved conflict in your life, and to write down 3 sentences about it. What happened from an objective point of view? You could use a couple sentences for that, because this is going to be a very, this part of it is going to be short, like describing what happened. So it shouldn't be a long, involved story. It should be something like, my friend owes me money and won't pay me back, but then I saw pictures on their Instagram that they're on this expensive vacation, so I'm really annoyed. Something like that you can describe quickly. How you're feeling about it? Well, like I said, I'm annoyed, I'm confused. Why wouldn't they do that? And then what you think about the other person involved, sort of unedited. Like, I think they're inconsiderate. I think they're dishonest. What somebody who wasn't stopping to do all their personal growth practices might just think off the top of their head. So I'm going to give you some examples in case you don't want to use a situation of your own. So, and this is actually true. What happened is they put up a parking lot in our neighborhood, but they also put a big sign that says that only cars from this one business can park there, only customers actually. So there's still lots of cars on our block, which goes along with trash and noise and such. And I'm feeling frustrated because I don't like the extra trash and the noise and such. And I think they're inconsiderate, short-sighted, and self-centered. So you can borrow that conflict if you want for the exercise, if you prefer not to share something personal. I'll give you one more example. This is not true. My sister doesn't have a daughter, but I'm just giving you an example that you can use if you want. My sister is letting her daughter use AI to complete her high school papers, and I'm feeling stunned and confused. And she's my niece. I want the best for her. And I think that my sister is exercising poor judgment. She's shortchanging her daughter of the education she deserves. So take a moment and write down the conflict that you would like to use. You can also make something up that's not here. And again, we'll be using this example that you come up with in the exercise a little later on. So what is Mendful? We're going to talk about the what and the why, what the gap is in the existing services. Did somebody just raise their hand? I can't see. Just speak up. Go ahead.
Yeah, I did. I had a question about when it was written, write your example. Were we supposed to write it down on the chat?
No, write it somewhere where you can refer back to it during your exercise. Thank you for clarifying that. So a quick overview of Mendful, what we're doing or why, um, look at some early screens, and then a key theme. So what is Mendful? This is an early screen of what it might look like if you were to download Mendful. So we're the world's first platform for human forward, AI supported conflict resolution on demand. Human forward means we're keeping the humans in the mix and keeping them front and center. And we're in the process of building it right now. David is a super high powered tech person. He's very modest about it, but he's built software that you probably use. We're describing it as relational infrastructure for a connected world. And I'll say more about that in a moment. And the Mendful Core Competencies Immersion Training, which we'll preview here, is the way that we've trained coaches to staff the app. We just launched our inaugural cohort in February for a soft launch in June. However, if you like what we're doing here, you don't have to work on the app to take the training. We just ask that you not build a competing platform. And why? We want to normalize relational repair. We want to make it as reflexive as reaching for a glass of water. Right now, you can get a human on demand 24/7 for rideshare, for psychic services, and for webcam entertainment. And we think that conflict resolution in this day and age is at least as important, if not a whole lot more important. So we want to provide accessible, effective alternatives to estrangement, polarization, cancel culture, violence, and war. So the problem is that let's say you get into a fight with your spouse or a friend at 11 at night. There's no therapist available. It takes a long time to book, and a therapist might not be specialized in conflict resolution. Legal mediation is adversarial, it's transactional, it divides up assets at the expense of relationships. It's not really suited for everyday interpersonal conflicts. In fact, one former judge that we know said, who's a mediator, said, I consider it a successful mediation if everyone goes away equally pissed off. It's kind of the opposite of what we're trying to do here. And AI only can falter, can hallucinate, and it can lack nuance, cultural relevance, and frankly, love. So here's a quick look at how Mendful fills the gaps in what's available. For those of you who've never heard of a peer support warm line, basically, you might have heard of a hotline. It's if somebody is suicidal or thinks they might do harm to someone else. A warm line is if, like, you've had a really crappy day and you want someone to talk to, or you're just struggling with something in your life. You don't have to be in imminent danger. And those provide instant help and support and train human providers, but not specialized conflict resolution skills or relationship repair or videos that you can share with folks to show them how to do it. So I just wanted to give you a glimpse of this. And to drill down even further, again, AI doesn't provide that nuance or cultural relevance, meaning maybe you want to talk to somebody who has the lived experience that you have. And we'll talk about that in a moment with how coaches can specialize in particular niches. And sometimes with AI, it's like, where's the love? So here are some early screens. You've already seen the one on the left. When people engage the Mendful platform, they'll have a choice. They can talk to a human coach, or they can talk to Mendy, our AI coach, or they can browse a library of videos. So let's say, for example, a gay son has just come out to his conservative, very religious father, and it's just not going well. Dad may refuse the invitation from Mendful. He doesn't want to do this woke thing, but we'll show dad a video of a gay son coming out to a father not unlike himself. And he might surreptitiously, anonymously browse that video, and then something inside him softens, and he's more open to his son. So that's part of what we're doing, is showing people what's possible, is laying down those neural pathways by example. We're playing around with the business model. We have a B2C and B2B pathway that I can get into after we're done with this, if you'd like. So remember I talked about cultural relevance? So everyone who's working on the app will be encouraged, not required, but if they want to, they can specialize in a particular aspect of human experience that they may know especially well. I made a sample profile for myself with something generic just for illustrative purposes, but let's look at these fictional characters for a moment. All his life, Jamal has been a friendship whisperer. And so he specializes in helping friends who have drifted apart and are in conflict get back together. Michael runs men's groups and specializes in helping men reconnect with their hearts. Sandra is dialed into the immigrant experience and specializes in helping Asian moms and daughters bridge some of those intergenerational and cultural gaps. And for each of these coaches, you would be able to connect now if they're available or schedule a session with them if they're away. You can click into their bio and see how they have developed their platform, their niche platform, right here on the app. You can meet them in a short video. You can see any blog posts or podcasts they've done, and you can see their client feedback. That's an early session screen. We're going to use more real estate for the faces, but that's what we had. So a key theme of the Mendful core competencies immersive training, meaning our approach. And it's what I call practices of internal reference. I just posted an article on Substack, which I can put in the chat later when you're in breakout rooms, about how the English language is incredibly externally referenced. We talk about what is right and wrong, which lands us in these static positions, which are not conducive to connection. They're conducive to argument, to polarization, estrangement, and yes, war. Getting internally referenced helps us connect with our hearts, with our core. And when we connect with the heart of another human being, we don't argue. We kind of get all melty and soft, right? And so we work with both linguistic and somatic internal reference. I just described the linguistic part when we talk about what is, what's outside of us. And these are some of the resources that we use. Wisdom of the Body is a somatic counseling practice that I developed in the early 2010s. Nonviolent communication, based in the work of Marshall Rosenberg, is a practice of internal reference. And My Grandmother's Hands dials into the somatic or embodied experience of living in a racialized culture like the US, which is the source of a lot of the conflicts. So practices of internal reference. I could geek out about this forever, so ping me if you want to. Wisdom of the Body was a body, mind, spirit, and emotion somatic counseling practice whose foundations I have parlayed into conflict resolution. In fact, what I noticed is that a lot of people's surus, which is Yiddish for pain and suffering, came from having conflicts with other people in their lives and sometimes within themselves. So we wound up using a lot of those practices for conflict resolution anyway. So that's some of the lineage that goes into Mendful. And I'll break it down: body, mind, spirit, and emotions. So where the body comes in is we also have a somatic model of a resource system. We call that somatic internal reference. It's a complement to linguistic internal reference. For example, as a practitioner, I attend to what's happening inside me so that I can present a coherent field or a settled nervous system to help whomever I'm in contact with also settle their nervous system. I'm not reaching out towards them. I'm not pulling on them. I'm not fitting them into my box. I'm over here and I'm in my heart inviting them to also come into their heart before I even say a word. And that's all to do with our bodies and how we relate to them. So that's the body part, a somatic model of a resource system. And then we use linguistic models to get underneath the stories, interpretations, and judgments. For example, somebody might say, that person's a jerk, and that might feel true to every fiber of their being. But if we ask them, were you feeling angry because you were wanting respect? They might go, yeah, because it's even truer. When we help people get underneath their initial reactions, their stories, and their judgments to what they're actually feeling, what they're needing, their values, even their bodily sensations, we can often help them to connect with a truer thing that will in turn help them resolve the conflict. And when I say spirit, I'm not talking about anything too woo, but rather the dimension of how our why, our meaning, our values, our purpose, our shared humanity shows up and how we want to show up in conflict. So that's the body, the mind, the spirit, and the emotions. One of the practices we use is being witness. Like, how do we witness our own and other people's emotions? How do we exercise the muscles that develop um, the capacity to do that. And that's a lot of what we practice. So, a body, mind, spirit, and emotion approach to conflict. Here's a model of a resource system that we know where we end and other people begin. So we have an edge, we have a boundary, I'm calling this me sourced. There are a lot of different traditions that feed into this, which I won't go into now, but this is not original with me. Coming into our hearts, feeling our care for ourselves and others, our core, who we are, what we value, our felt sense of ourselves as a unique and distinct entity in the universe, and filling up that space with who we are, but not going beyond that. And grounding into the earth, our sense of belonging here on the planet. When we practice these things, we can show up in a way that we are optimally resourced for the people that we're working with. So that's part of the body part. So another thing that we're playing with is how, as practitioners, sometimes I don't know if you've seen this model before, but unconscious competence is like a toddler who doesn't know how to drive and they don't even know really what a car is, except that they get into it sometimes. And conscious incompetence is the stage where you know that there's something that one of your parents is doing when they get behind the wheel, but you don't know how to do it. Maybe you drive your little toy car around. And then conscious competence is when you're finally in driver's ed and you're driving that car, you have to think about everything that you're doing. And then unconscious competence is kind of like a flow state where there's a kind of automation to how you perform the skill. Part of what drove me to get into how humans relate and healing and that sort of thing, which I've kind of led a double life because I also have a whole career in tech, is that I would go to practitioners a lot and they were in this stage of conscious competence where when I was just about to get to someplace inside myself that was transformative or have an emotional release, it seemed like the practitioner would become anxious. And then they would do their modality, like to manage their anxiety to me or at me or on me. Like somebody was nodding, maybe you've had this experience. And to me, that's kind of stopping at the level of conscious competence, that they're doing a thing, but it's not necessarily attuned to me and what I need. And so when I was doing wisdom of the body, I really cultivated this attribute of being in the flow and listening to the field, attuning to my body, attuning to their body, to trust in that field to bring forth what was needed. And so that's part of what we cultivate as well as being able to, and this is something that kids kind of know, like something that we already know that gets trained out of us because so much of our schooling and often parenting is very externally referenced. In other words, we do what we're told. We lean into the algorithms and the processes and the procedures that we're told are right, as opposed to leaning into our embodied knowledge. And so we are experimenting with jumping into that that what we already know, basically, and bringing those embodied, ancient, beautiful human capacities to each other in conflict. And so what this can look like is that, let's say I'm a conflict resolution coach and I'm bringing the session, that I prepare myself and I create this field of belonging, of heart space, and then I invite the people into it. And before I've even opened my mouth, I've helped the clients step into a more settled nervous system before I even bring out any of the fancy tricks, right? So remember a moment ago, I asked you to come up with a conflict in your life or borrow one of ours. Let's do a little exercise and just, there's no wrong way to do this. This is not any kind of test. It's just, we're going to play with some of what we just talked about. So we're going to divide you into groups of two and let David know if you don't want to do this exercise for whatever reason. So he won't pair you with someone, but one of you will be the speaker or the client, and one of you will be the coach or the listener. And the invitation is for the speaker to talk to the coach as if they were like their practitioner about the unresolved conflict. And the coach will listen and say, huh, tell me more about that. Or were you feeling, and like ask them for a guess. And all you do as the client is you note the coach's level of presence and anything they were doing instead of presence. And you give them feedback. And then, and I'm going to ask you right now if you can take a screenshot of this so you have it. And then the coach will incorporate the feedback and try again. So I'm going to demonstrate this. Again, the invitation is to talk about your conflict with the coach. The coach listens, and then the clients give them feedback, and then they try again. Then you'll switch, and you'll have 5 minutes each to do that. So the sharing should be about 2 minutes. The feedback should be about 1 minute, and then the sharing again should be about 2 minutes for a total of 5 for the first person. And then you'll switch and do the same thing for the second person. So David, do you want to join me
Sure.
in a demonstration? You can
Yep. Do you want us?
foreground us. What's it called? The
Let me
highlighter.
see if I can do that.
Should I stop sharing for that?
Sure. Yep.
Oh, there you all are.
There we are. Okay.
So I'll be the coach, and you can be the client, and we're going to do an abbreviated version so that you have time to do this.
Okay. So should I start or do you want to start?
Yeah, no, you tell me. You tell me this conflict that you're having, or you can use one of the
Uh,
ones.
well, I'm really frustrated or disappointed, mad in my neighbor. He did something that really impacted me without checking in with me. He had this beautiful field next door, and he had a problem because he needed more parking space. So they paved paradise and they put up a parking lot. Um, the,
Oh, I'm sorry.
yeah,
You're talking to me.
yeah,
All right, so I exaggerated, obviously. Lack of attention. Can you give me some feedback on how well I showed up for you?
you looked like you couldn't care less. You really, I was just like you were just there to list. I don't know, like I didn't really feel connected to you.
Thank
Didn't
you for
really feel
telling.
like sharing more.
Yeah, thank you for telling me. Okay, I'm going to try to do better this time. Can you start again?
Yes. Um, I'm really disappointed in my neighbor because he did something really impactful without checking in with me. He had a really beautiful field next door and they paved it. They paved paradise. They put up a parking lot. Um,
So you were feeling sad? Is that it? Is that close?
yeah, I was sad that he did something so impactful without checking in with me.
So you were really wanting some cooperation, some collaborative decision making, some consideration of what you
Yeah,
wanted? Hmm.
yep, yeah.
Thank you. So that's basically it. There's no wrong way to do this. Um, the person, so the um, instead of the times that are on the screenshot, I'm going to suggest 212 for 5. In other words, uh, the speaker speaks for 2 minutes, then gets a minute of feedback, then speaks for another 2 minutes for a total of 5 minutes for that first person, and then switch roles for the second person.
We have an odd number of people, which would put 3 people in one room. So for one
David,
breakout room.
can we keep it to 2 and can you join one of the
You
rooms?
can, or you can kick me out if you want.
Oh, I think we just lost somebody. So now we have an even number of people. Hold on a second.
Oh no. I hope
Oh,
they
one
didn't
second. Let me recreate these. Hold on a second.
I'm just going to change
Here
the
we go. All right, here we go.
Yash, I'm so sorry. David was having technical difficulties and he couldn't pop into your room.
Oh, I don't know how I seem to be the only one in the room after a moment there.
Oh, you
I
were
mean,
also on your own?
no, we had a conversation and just seemed like Georgia this the space she disappeared from the space for some reason.
Do you
So I
mean as a
jumped out.
way of,
No,
yeah,
we had a great session and then um uh
Yes, sorry,
I'll,
Bill. I know I came back into the room and then you weren't there. So sorry. Yeah.
oh well she put us back in. Yeah, I don't know what happened either. So anyway, I appreciate what you were saying about being in person
Mhm.
is preferable in these interpersonal conflict situations.
Do you
And
mean having a human in the room?
yes, well, being not on Zoom, being actually physically in a room with another
Ah,
human being has co-regulate. We didn't talk about it, but there's co-regulation that
Yeah.
happens and all those kinds of things. So that's what Georgia was speaking to.
do you want to, Georgiana, do you want to, yeah.
Yes, and that we were just as we had started to sort of to speak about that, how sometimes over Zoom, but I must say with Bill, it's incredible because even over Zoom, he has such a calming presence that it even came through over Zoom, and it's incredible. It was a great testament to how when you do have you're speaking to somebody who does have that calming presence and that even tone
Mhm.
uh, that you can still get sort of a bit of that benefit, right? Well, not a bit, but you get that co-regulation still. Although in person, of course, there's such a different element when you're face to face. It lends itself to a different conversation sometimes. But Bill was really you can pick up on the empathy and the active listening,
Mm, mm.
regardless, and his tone. The tone makes such a difference to calm you down. It's incredible, like to calm me down, speaking for myself, because he speaks calmly, and then it really does just lower the volume, the temperature sort of in the room, and causes me to speak, a little bit also calmer.
Yeah,
Thank
yeah.
you, Bill.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank
You did a
you.
great job. Thank you.
Other other tidbits, learnings, noticings.
If I
Yeah,
may,
Misty. Oh,
when I shared my story, what I did appreciate was the fact that the person listening to me could relate, and also he confirmed that it was the same for him.
mm-hmm.
Alone, I mean, this is something I appreciate. It's like, oh, cool.
Nice. That's sympathy. Thank you, Caroline and Misty.
Yeah, I just felt there was um, potential. I just am really excited for the opportunity. I mean, just working for 5 minutes on an actual little conflict, I thought, wow, this could actually be something. This is really exciting to just not even look at it like hour-long therapy sessions, but just I have a conflict unresolved and it's disturbing inside of me. And I just want to conference with someone on this, I thought. And the gentleman I was working with, Olaf, is this pronouncing it? Thank you. Doesn't know where this will lead, if he's going to continue or what it looks like. And I just thought, oh my gosh, I actually think you'd be really good for this. Like there was just this just calm affirmation, and he did an amazing job. And I just thought, just having the right people in the right room with someone in a conflict could be so powerful.
Yeah, whenever we want it. Like over breakfast, something is going terribly awry and I can't even finish my breakfast. Let's get some help right
Yeah,
now.
and just that quick ability to access someone to help the emotions regulate a little before the person responds or before the person goes to work and has to face the coworker or whatever.
Someone in a meeting recently said to me, like, why don't they teach NVC, nonviolent communication, in school? Seems so basic, especially given what's happening in the world today. Let's take a couple more shares.
Yeah, this is Carlos. Yeah, in my conversation, I think the immediate I mean, I come from a business perspective, business world, and where there's a lot of conflict, right? And a lot of aggressive people. And but just say having that immediate kind of calming reaction and guidance, I'm sorry, I'm embarrassed to say I didn't ask, is it Zofnat, the proper
Definite,
pronunciation? Yeah, the
definite.
proper
Thank you,
pronunciation
Carl.
of your name, but there was just an immediate de-escalation as I was sharing kind of a conflict. And so I thought that was really helpful, really impactful.
Yeah, and that de-escalation, Carlos, you really kind of honed in on something that can be super helpful. If two people are in conflict, it's not about the story. It's not about who's right or wrong. It's about how their nervous systems are connecting with one another. Because from there, once people drop back into that heart space, the figuring it out is going to happen organically. It's not going to happen because somebody was more right and dominated the other one into resigning and acquiescing. That's not sustainable.
Yeah, no doubt. That was helpful.
And let's take one more share. Scott, you're on mute.
I worry one of my other personalities is going to speak out. So at any rate, Catherine I thought did an excellent job. Number one, I had a real example of an ongoing situation that I'm dealing with. It's familial in nature. It involves a daughter and my granddaughter and my role in what she's doing. And Catherine, first of all, the comfort level of her coach of being able to smile and laugh and establish a relationship, which I think we all know it can be more difficult online than as we talk about being in person. And very skilled at that. Also connecting with me and talking about how difficult familial conflicts can be. And then seeking more information. So she was definitely connected, and I just thought it was. And again, I don't know about Catherine's background in terms of what she does professionally or whatever, but as a person who used to hire and spent a vast majority of my professional life not only mediating but also training mediators and hiring mediators. Um, she's skilled, and it was.
You're hired, Catherine.
Yeah.
Thank you, Scott.
Wow. Huh. Thank you. That's really what a lovely thing to say. Um, and I have to apologize. I didn't follow the rules. We didn't follow the rules. We got completely engaged in the issues that we were talking about. And I found him to be open, relatable, willing, and really, I felt the pain he was feeling.
Mm.
And I was just about to get into kind of where that landed on the scale. And I, my first goal is to get in relationship. That's the
Yeah.
goal. So it was interesting because we both are professional mediators, and it was kind of fun. He knew kind of exactly how to frame the issue so that he could, highlight things that I don't know what's true, but I think he was, hoping that I would touch on or find, right? He knew how to deliver. And so the kindness, I mean, I enjoyed his company, and I don't know, maybe we can work together. Do you ever do co-mediating?
So I would say take it offline. You can reach out to me if you want to be in touch, and I'm happy to do that. But I'm glad that for the connections being made here and for the human factor coming forward. Like I said, there's no wrong way to do this. We're it's all one grand experiment. And as I alluded to before, I'll say it in a different way now. The last thing we want is for any technique to become some sort of external reference that we're in service to ahead of the human connection. I'm going to tell a quick little story because we have a few minutes. I don't think I've ever been ahead of timing before in these workshops. So I'm a little verklempt. Like, what do I do at this time? When I was first learning about nonviolent communication, mediation, I was very eager to practice. And my 2-year-old son would sometimes, have his moments. And I would say to him, Kanan, are you feeling frustrated because your need for autonomy is not met? And he would go, yeah. And my friends would witness this and they would say, Jill, come on. He does not understand what you're saying. And I'd say, yes, he does. I can feel it. He understands what I'm saying. And I thought, I'm going to test something out. So the next time he got into a little, toddler snafu, I said, Kanan, are you feeling fishimeled because pigeons aren't really sparrows? And he goes, yeah. And I thought, oh, I'm busted. They were right. But then I realized it wasn't the words. It was me leaning in and trying to attune to him. And in fact, when I was teaching empathy guesses in 2017, people were getting all caught up in their heads trying to think of the right feeling. Are you feeling, let me look at the list. No, so then we just replaced that with just lean in and say, are you feeling X because you're wanting Y? And people felt it, like they felt the empathy, even though the words were non-existent. They had been replaced by variables. So the last thing we want is first any technique to replace that empathic heart connection. That's the techniques to be useful. So we're experimenting in the training right now about cultivating the presence and then sort of sneaking in the techniques, not at the expense of that precious human connection. So I'm going to put a quick evaluation in the chat. I'm going to ask you to click on it and take a couple minutes and tell us, the good, the bad, the ugly. How was this for you? What would you recommend for future such events? Because we do read them and look at them and try to incorporate what you say. A heart of conflict resolution might be curiosity. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Curiosity from a heart place in service to the other, I could say, because I've, been the object of all kinds of curiosity. It's not necessarily in service to what's happening here. Somebody sharing their screen? Oops.
Sorry, I pressed on the wrong button.
No problem. I'm going to just pause the recording and let you. So I'm going to share again. So this was workshop 1 of 4. And each of these introductory workshops gives a different taste of what's in the Mendful training. And today was a very basic taste, but also an overview of the whole mind, body, spirit. The rest of the workshops are attunement. And in that workshop, we'll be looking at what often happens instead of attunement, how to cultivate attunement, and in particular, looking at some of the different somatic patterns of attention, I call them. Some people call them neo-Reichian character structures. Some people call them personality patterns. But what happens when a stimulus hits our system, and how does that impact, how we show up in the world and what works in terms of attuning to us? So that's attunement. Empathizing with the enemy. This is a fun one. What do you do when you're faced with someone whose views you find just abhorrent, repugnant? Every fiber of your being wants to turn away or vomit or punch them or something. How do you show up and engage with them, assuming that you want to? That might happen if you're working on the Mendful app, for example. And then for the geeky among you, concepts, models, and philosophies is where I go into some of the, my body of work around linguistic internal reference and how that contextualizes, for example, nonviolent communication and the somatic internal reference. And that's not going to be an interactive workshop. I'm going to present, I'm going to talk for about 20 or 30 minutes, and then we're going to have an open discussion. So those are the rest of the 1-hour workshops. You're welcome to come to any or all of them as my guest using the code MENDFULGUEST. If you do choose to contribute, it all goes to our efforts to bootstrap Mendful into reality. The core competencies immersion training. February 2026 cohort is full. It's already begun. We are off and running. The next one is in July, and it's a remote 6-month training. And January is a hybrid 9-month training, and all of them consist of 3 long weekends, which are about 9 months apart. And for both of those trainings, you work in pods of 4 remotely between those long weekends, and that includes reviewing and recording your work, uploading it, reviewing other people's work, so you can really get visibility. And that's about 5 hours per week, or a little bit less for these longer trainings. And we plan to soft launch the app in June with certified Mendful coaches from this training that we're in right now. And we also really need people to test the app. So we'll be getting in touch with you about those opportunities. Like, try it out, give us feedback, help us develop it. And I'll send this deck around so you can click on that. And that's it in terms of all I have to tell you. And so we have just about a minute left before we officially end. But I'm going to stay longer for any questions or sharing that you want to do. And I'll also put the link to the training in the chat. I can also put any of those slides back up if you want to see more about something. Here's the link to everything you wanted to know about the training. Thanks, Georgiana. Thanks, Sofnat. Bye, Bryony. Bryony, do you want to say anything before you go about the training? Oh, she's gone already. Yeah, please go ahead.
I just had a quick question. I had looked at the training for the one starting in July, and it says approximately like 5 hours per week. The per week sessions, are those on specific days, or is that just as we work in our group?
The group decides.
Okay.
You will pair you with people in your time zone. For this training, we have people in Egypt and Brazil and Nigeria and India. So
okay, great.
yes.
So the only specified dates and times are the 3 long weekends. Everything else we'll decide later. Okay, great.
There will also be a couple of open coaching sessions that are optional, and I try to make those so everybody can come to them. Olaf, yes.
Yeah, I have a lot of questions about, if you're launching this initial thing, soft launching it in July, how are you, June, sorry, how are you covering this sort of 24/7 aspect of it? Do you have like coaches in all time zones?
That's the idea, and we're well on our way because of all the the countries represented that I mentioned. I've also heard, for example, that there were lots of people well schooled in nonviolent communication in Nigeria who don't have a way, to make a living from that in their home country. And so I thought, wow, if we could do some trainings in countries where there are people with skills already who would be good mental conflict resolution coaches, then they could work, during the day for them, which might be, nighttime for folks who are ready, willing, and able to pay for the service. It could be a win-win-win all the way around. So I've started conversations with some folks about that. We might not be able to deliver on the all 24 hours in a given day at the beginning.
This is more going into business, but like, what are you envisioning about like how big will this team of coaches become potentially?
It could be, I mean, part of my vision, I didn't speak to this at the beginning, but I will now, is to provide right livelihood opportunities for people doing this kind of work who might be naturally compassionate. There's no prerequisites. If somebody comes in and they seem like they have compassion, I think they'd make a good coach, assuming they're trainable. I don't care how many, letters someone has after their name. If they're a cold fish, it's not going to be a good fit,
Right. But it feels like it could be like hundreds or thousands of coaches,
oh, yeah.
right? Or more than that.
Absolutely. Right now, I'm wearing so many hats. Not only am I the lead trainer, I'm the CEO, I'm the content creator, I'm doing all these things. So as soon as I have the ability, to hand off, as soon as some people are completely trained in this and can go and train other people, that's how we'll scale. But it's going to be, I think the first couple of years are going to be pretty slow because of, the nature of it.
I have a question. One of the challenges of doing this work online or even in an office is isolation that comes from that, right? One-on-one, and then you're just sitting there. So have you given any thought to how to organize the Mendful folks as they develop so that there could be some kind of team
It,
building?
yeah, Bill, that is so close to my heart. And one of the things that I really want to do, and I think we are doing in this first cohort, is building community. It was only very reluctantly that I realized I needed to do and decided to do a remote training. I really, really, really wanted to do an in-person training, not just because of, my somatic background and bias and all the embodied things that I wanted to do. So I thought it would be more fun. I thought it would give people who live near each other or,
Mhm.
you know, are coming together in person and could keep in touch, give those folks a chance to really develop bonds and do the work with each other. Because when you practice this work, you often use your own life, right? I think somebody already mentioned that they were using a family issue. And so you get a lot of really good support, and then you get close to the people that you work with. So that is something that I want to nurture. So thank you for mentioning that.
Yeah, I think about accountability and, all the issues that can come up with people doing individual work and not having any for, formal or semi-formal relationships with each other. I'm not thinking about supervision necessarily, but um, anyway, it uh, since this is so new to me, I don't want to say any more about what what I am beginning to feel or think. It's exciting. I appreciate what you're trying to do, and I think the scaling question, if it's going to continue to be successful, I think is going to need some infrastructure uh, to support folks and not just like
Yes.
one central hub and you know so
Yeah,
anyway.
yeah, I have thought about that. And I mean, ideally, I would like to see all of the mental conflict resolution coaches who are working on the app come together regularly, share, support each other. The thing is, at least initially, I think they'll have to be contractors. And so
Yeah.
the idea of like asking people to come together for another work-related thing that they're not getting paid for can be tricky. So those are some of the questions that we're holding and continuing to inquire into.
It's very interesting. I'm intrigued, so and I look forward to learning more.
Thanks, Phil. And yeah, so again, come to let me put the list of put all the events up on the site, and you can register for all of them using the code Mendful Guest if you would like,
Mhm.
and invite if you know other folks you think would resonate with this, please invite them because I don't know where they are, but you do. Oops, that's not right. Ignore that. There should be an S at the end. So there are all the rest of the intro events for the next month or so. Any other thoughts? Anything on your mind? Anything surprising? What's your favorite dessert? No, go ahead, Scott. You were about to say something.
Oh, no, it's just sometimes when we deal with different approaches to conflict resolution. Number one, I've done it long enough in my life, been involved in the field that I actually don't talk about conflict resolution. I talk about conflict management.
Thank you.
And
Yeah.
that because conflict and I try and get people to be comfortable with conflict, that it's
Yeah.
pretty normal. And that without it, a lot of human progress doesn't get made.
Yeah.
And that the where the real value decisions get involved and different approaches as well as different styles get involved is how you choose to manage the conflict that's inherent in your
Exactly.
life. And so I would, my phraseology when I speak publicly about this is talk about positive conflict management.
Beautiful.
So
PCM.
yeah, and that's always been my approach, and I've mediated across the spectrum in terms of obviously the vast amount of my mediation has been in labor disputes.
Mm.
But I've also done cultural, um, public policy, individual grievance mediation kind of stuff. Um, at any rate, and the one thing I will say is, when I was getting legal training, it takes a long time, and you got to take a lot of law school classes and learn a lot of rules and everything else. And when I was first getting involved in mediation, um, I was with my mentor who was training me, and of course he had helped me with my prep on the formal stuff as an administrative law judge, the legal aspect. And so he calls me into his office very seriously about training, about on mediation, and he just looked at me and says, "You just do whatever works."
Exactly.
And that's why I've never liked to get locked in stylistically.
Yeah. 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 The people in this cohort have a really wide, diverse background. There's somebody with a master's in restorative justice. There's Fulbright scholar. There's all kinds of folks. And what I imagine is that, we're using a basic nonviolent communication mediation 3-chair method combined with some of the somatic stuff that I talked about, and then Mickey Kashdan's adaptation of NVC principles into convergent facilitation for decision making, which is essentially surfacing the needs, because NVC can be kind of esoteric, irritating for people to follow, and she was looking for a way to bring the essence, the heart of nonviolent communication to a universal phenomenon like decision making that could be more easily adopted. And I think she did an amazing job with that. I don't know if anyone is familiar with her or her work somewhat. So that's our approach. And that said, yeah, I mean, people were talking about going into the exercise and doing what they wanted to do instead of following the rules. And at the end of the day, I think, the human factor really does take the day. That said, we are trying to provide a consistent experience so that people who, like, somebody came to me and said, well, I have, this spiritual practice, and he described it to me. And I said, no, we are not doing that on the Mendful app because we don't want someone to come in looking for conflict resolution and suddenly somebody pulls out their crystals or their tarot cards or something, because that's it's not culturally relevant to them. We do, however, want to provide cultural relevance. We
Right.
want to allow people to foreground their lived experiences, their areas of expertise, to bring that in as relevant to the conflict resolution. Oh, let me finish the thought about the business part of this is that Mendful is a brand, and we want people to have a more or less consistent experience of coming in, feeling really heard, and having their conflicts resolved quickly. Not because they're getting rushed through or because feelings are getting glossed over, pushed aside, but because we are able to get to the heart of what each person is really feeling and really needing. We make the space so safe and so inviting that they're able to do that pretty quickly. They're able to drop their stories and their defensiveness. And once they do that, then the resolution comes pretty organically, as those of you in the field can probably attest. Some of you were nodding there. So we want that to happen with every Mendful conflict resolution session. Like, we don't want someone to come in and make the decision for them or do something that's not that.
Makes sense.
So, in your view, someone who was functioning in a mediation role and a Mendful approach would never be directive?
You mean in terms of
Offering
an action?
options?
Correct. And that's part of what I learned in the seeds mediation training. They had us do an exercise where they said, how many of you, like I am a know-it-all. I have a big ego. I can be arrogant. Just ask my partner. I'm a lot better than I used to be, not better at being arrogant, but that's gotten tempered over the years. But I still, like when they asked us in this exercise, how many of you think that you can give people advice and you have really good advice to give? And I said, I do. And how many of you think you should let the clients come up with their own solutions? And they said, we've been doing this, 30 years, and no matter how good our advice, and even if the clients think it's a good idea in the moment, it doesn't work out. The only solutions that people follow through with consistently are those that they come up with on their own. And so that was me going, okay, ego, you're going to have to sit over there while you do this work. Because it doesn't matter how smart you are. It doesn't matter how good your ideas are. What matters is that the people involved in the conflict come up with the solutions themselves. So no,
Well,
Scott.
there's a phrase in mediation training that I use all the time. I say, when's an idea a good idea? And the answer is when it's yours. And hopefully reflective of what you were just suggesting. But I would also say, depending on situations, a lot of it is what people's expectations are and coming into the environment and setting expectations and about what to expect. And part of my deal is there's a reason you're in the room.
Yeah.
Whether it's as a coach or in a straight mediation role. You have expertise and knowledge. Sometimes I'll throw out suggestions which I know are unacceptable. Because
just so they can unite around the no, you mean?
Bingo, there you go. And it's sometimes when people are not focused on solutions, it can be a very effective technique.
Ah, interesting. So one of the things we're doing is we're collecting best practices as we review each other's work, and we find things, gems, practices, ways of showing up that we want to copy, we want to use in the future. We're making note of them.
And by the way, I've done in our practice with the Federal Mediation and Conciliation Service, we have the ability, by rule, by policy, for mediation practice, to offer mediator recommendations. Now, we have various steps that you have to go through. But I will tell you, in 37 years with the feds, and probably another 12 with state, I think I gave 3. I mean, I mediated thousands of disputes, and I think I gave like 3 recommended settlements. And that's where these cases, it was a bilateral dispute, and both parties simply requested my mediations. And on one, I refused my recommendation. On one, I refused to recommend. I said, no, I'm going to give you a mediator option.
Interesting. Wow. Anyone else want to share? Anyone who hasn't spoken or hasn't spoken very much?
I feel that Scott and Bill both bring up a very good point in we are dealing with people that aren't vetted and licensed, haven't done, 3,000 hours under the supervision of someone else, and just really embracing the idea of this is more so a safe space to lower the temperature of emotions and help people work through their own emotions, calming the nervous system so that they have the clarity to come up with a solution on their own. This is
exactly.
not, yeah,
That's
this is
beautiful.
Not,
thank you for saying that.
yeah. And I feel like even with, I've had a personal therapist or counselor the majority of my entire adult life just for maintenance. And even her, who has a little bit less liability and licensed and things of that nature, she too allows me to kind of come up with my own solutions. I mean, there's moments I've specifically asked her, like, I just need you to tell me what to do. And she's just like, we're going to work through that and you're going to figure it out. Like, so just reminding everyone this is a safe space to allow people to work through their own emotions, calming their nervous system for clarity, not therapy and counseling.
There's another piece that I'm hearing in what you were pointing to, Misty, which is I think all of what everybody's saying is I resonate with. The other part is that there's a confidence that things can change that comes from somebody listening to you that well.
The hope, right? You get a human connection and you realize there's hope. Someone's listening to you, maybe a gentle affirmation to being heard. I was a negotiator for peaceful resolutions with the SWAT team for many, many years. And at the end of the day, we didn't do anything grandiose. People just needed to be heard. And maybe not agreed with, but just a space for them to be listened to. And then human connection of like, somebody heard me, even if it's through a phone.
I like to bring the word belonging into the room. I think this country, starting with the land, we all have a fractured relationship to belonging to the land. Either our ancestors were kidnapped and brought over here and enslaved, or we were fleeing from hard times in Europe and we came and our ancestors, some of our ancestors decimated the indigenous population, or we are the remainder of an indigenous population. But nobody has a straightforward relationship to the land and its history here, nor our own roots, a lot of us, and I'm talking about the US here. And so we're already wounded, I think, in terms of the kind of birthright to belonging. And so when we have a conflict, it brings up not only, maybe our unhappiness about the parking lot or whatever it is, but also the sense of our sense of belonging to that relationship or to the family or to the group, which you're both a part, is also being threatened. And so as Mendful conflict resolution coaches, we try to create a sort of microcosmic field of belonging right there within the session, to invite everybody in so that their nervous systems can settle and can feel how much they really do want to sort of re-belong to. They want to mend that. And this is not stuff that we go into. We don't talk about this during the session, but we'll be bringing an embodiment of that quality. It's been so lovely to get to know you all a little bit, and I kind of don't want to go because I'm enjoying being with you. But I've got to go build Mendful. Anything else before we close?
Just thank you. I love the idea. I think there are so many humans out there that need a sense of belonging, even if it's 30 minutes with someone who just listened to them. I think this is manifesting. It always has manifested just the sense of belonging, especially people that don't have a spirituality or a part of community or community relationships. And it just gives that connection. I mean, it's been proven scientifically that human connection helps with mental health and longevity and all the things. And to bring it to a progressive platform like this to adapt, I think this is extremely important.
Thank you. It's really nice to hear that, because I do a lot of work alone. And so to have that value reflected back to me, I feel seen, and I appreciate it very much. All right. Well, I hope to see you in some of the upcoming workshops. If you're feeling so inspired, I hope to see you in the July training. Have a wonderful rest of your day and beyond.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.